We're talking with Janet Dougherty today. Janet is an inventor, an author, a business consultant, and an experiential games facilitator. And today, Janet, we want to talk about an invention that you have created called Key Rights. And tell us a little bit about why you created it and what it is.
Certainly. I was working in an office environment as an occupational health consultant. It was an energy company. And so part of the brief was to reduce the reduce the incidence of occupational overuse syndrome, also known as repetitive strain injury. And these were with people who were having neck and shoulder discomfort, wrist pain, etc. And the environment was a call centre area where the people had to take in phone calls for new registrations for energy, like gas or electricity, and also to do debt collection as well. And sometimes those debt collection calls were really uncomfortable. Stress necks would occur. And the desk environment, they had the legal right size desk and everything, the right height, the chair the right height. But they worked straight onto a computer like this, and they had a desk this side and a desk this side, but there was no systems at all. So they had piles of folders and files here, and piles on this side. So there was no structure, or no one had systematized. You can go from left to right or right to left. And they'd have a headset on, and often when the calls came in, the people would be listening on the phone but trying to juggle pieces of paper to write notes as well as do data entry onto the computer at the same time. So there was nowhere to actually put the files because the keyboard was in the way. And I watched these people on and off for 3 months, and I actually watched a number of different office environments. I was thinking, what is it that can be designed to make them work from left to right, sit straight on looking at their PC, following the Visual Display Unit Code of Practice in New Zealand, which is pretty standard around the world really. And that would mean that they could actually have more desk space, so they had somewhere to write, and that meant that they could lean on it. And the interesting thing about typing and writing is when you type down here, and when you write up here. If you watch a child, it's automatic, they lean forward to write. So I wanted something that could really help them with that. And so it was like, what do I want it to do? So first of all, I identified what the problems were, then I identified what a product needed to do to actually take away all the problems for them. And so I realised designing a document holder that would go over the top of a keyboard means that they could angle adjust it at any angle they wanted to suit their own adjustment, so they could read, even if they want to read straight here or read down like this, they could angle it that they could lean on it and write on it, and also to be able to push it away and push the keyboard underneath and maybe have the desk space in front of them that they could write on there. And so wanted the product, which I hadn't worked out what it was to be made of or anything by that stage, was if they had post-it notes, they could stick it on something. So it had to be something that was solid and sturdy. And so I knew exactly what I wanted it to do. I could visualise it, I could feel it, touch it in my head, but I couldn't draw it. I'm not an artist. And after 3 months of finalising the concept, I realised I felt really uncomfortable. Who was I going to go to that I could trust this with? Because I knew it was the first of its kind in the world and would be the best. And then I met Mike Pollitt at a trade show, and I just liked him. He's an office furniture manufacturer, and it was like I felt really sick in the stomach because I knew as soon as I explained what this product was, anybody could run away with it because I knew it answered so many problems. And so I shared it with Mike, and he said he could help me with it. Stomach churning like crazy because I thought I could have just lost it like that. So anyway, he went back that night because he was at the same trade show showing his desk arrangements and designs, and he went back and he got the guys back in his workshop to come up with a prototype, and the next morning he brought it in. I just wanted to cry. It had nothing like what I wanted. How could he not see what my vision was? I'd explained it. And it was like having a baby. It took us 9 months to get it right. And I have a marketing degree, so at the end of that 9 months, I I wanted, of course, to be the person who marketed it. So that was a very interesting process. Shall I explain what happened?
Sure.
Okay, so many people in manufacturing do a cost plus scenario. So this is what it cost us. This is the amount of profit on it. And of course, if you have a marketing background, you actually want to sell the product what it's worth to the person, what they value it at. And I knew it was a high-end product, so it had to have a high-end value. So people knew that it was a product that would last and do a good job. So what Mike wanted to sell it for was nothing like what I wanted to sell it for. So I had to negotiate with him that give me a year and I'll get it on the marketplace. And so I did, and that's what we did. But the reason why I invented it was to absolutely solve a lot of problems in the office administration area for people. And physiotherapists, occupational health nurses, it just went really fast at the end of that first year of getting it out in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. So where can they get it?
Keyrites.com, KEYRITES.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Who would use it? You talked about people in the call centre. Who else would use it?
Anybody who does data entry, because you can angle adjust it at any level from 0 to 60 degrees and lock it in at any angle. Anybody who reads a lot. So we're finding our judges are buying it because as we get older, our neck gets kind of stiff, and if you're leaning like this all the time or you're holding heavy books, it becomes uncomfortable. So now people who read heavy books, they can just place it on there, open it up and sit there and read really comfortably. We also include this really wide rubber band that holds pages open, so it's a very heavy, thick book. It can be held open. So people who read a lot, people who are doing PhD need to read a lot. Students, it's really good for students. If you have a 15-year-old and they have a different way of learning and they just want to lie on the floor and read, they can angle it to suit themselves and lie down with a pillow under their stomach and just read. It's also very good for straight data entry. We have a number of people in banks. The Inland Revenue Department in New Zealand have bought quite a few. Sometimes they go into an office environment and they go, oh wow, my Keyrites in here, because I don't know where they're being sold, because we now sell it through wholesalers and retailers. And people who are PAs, who are doing multitasking work. So anybody who's multitasking in an office, home office desk environment, they can use it for reading, writing or drawing on.
Okay, and so I think your key words are
Write on, draw on, read from.
write on,
Draw
Draw
on, read from.
Yep.
Changes your life. You work from left to right or right to left. It makes your desk space clean and tidy, because you're always focused on what you're working on right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, okay. So Janet, you started out nursing and then you've worked in occupational health consulting.
That's right.
And you've got a marketing degree.
I have.
And you're also an inventor with Keyrite, and you're coming up with lots and lots of other solutions. In fact, one of the newest additions to your repertoire is actually teaching people to be able to identify problems and then to find solutions and then to market it. So everything that you have done in the past is really leading towards that. So at what point did you realise that you were an inventor and that you did use all of these skills and experience to be able to help other people?
You know, I didn't realise I was an inventor until I went out to dinner with a girlfriend of mine and her husband, and he's an electronics engineer. And we sat down at the table, and Penny and I were sitting together, but her husband and I came up with this idea and wrote a marketing plan literally on a napkin for what was happening in the summer area of Mission Bay in New Zealand that was coming up. It was an ice cream cart, and there'd been ice cream carts before, but none like the one we designed, and we had so much fun, and we just couldn't stop laughing. We had this whole thing and everybody would want one. And he said to me, Janet, you've got an inventive mind. Obviously you've done the Keyrite and now you come up with this. He said, you need to come to Inventors Trust. We need people like you. And Inventors Trust was a not-for-profit organisation in Auckland, and they met the third Monday of every month. It's disbanded now. But eventually I became the facilitator for it, and it was 99.999% males that went there and me. I loved it. That's where I met my husband. So I was considered one of the successful inventors. I actually label myself as a mini inventor because my product I considered kind of little, but a lot of them said that I was very successful because I conceptualised something, got it to market and made a reasonable amount of money from it. Yeah. But I want to teach other people how to do that because I come up with ideas all the time, and I know there's a lot of creative people out there who do, and I know a lot of inventive people who come up with the ideas but never do the market research. So they assume everybody wants it and they lose so much when they've got it wrong. Because if you haven't worked out that the product is needed, and if you haven't worked out the price point that people are going to buy it for, and can you manufacture it where you make a profit and have a market big enough to take it, you're stuffed. So I really want to help people. And I've identified that there are 14 to 18-year-olds who are creative and clever and disruptive in class. I love those people. Ingenious minds, full of energy, but not really channeled where they can use it, and want to work with them so that they can get their uniqueness out there, because they'll come up with ideas all the time. They live in a digital age. Most of them will understand how to buy things online. I want to teach them how to use the practical side of their brain to come up with products and services that make a difference in the world that they can contribute to and earn from.
Mm-hmm. And you've actually developed a program to do that.
I have. It's called Biz Grow Global, and that's the education side of it, and it's through playing experiential games. So sitting in a setting where you play games and it's fast paced, and you can't help but learn about trademarks, copyright, intellectual property stuff, because the games are skewed in such a way that you fail if you don't do certain things. And also learning how to do the numbers. Somebody on a team will be appointed the finance person. Whether they know about numbers or not, they will very quickly learn how important they are. And in a team environment, they all work with each other. So they'll learn about shareholding in business, because there'll all be shareholders in their team, and one will be the business manager. So it'll teach them the basics of doing business and how to look around and create ideas for what products could be. And then they have to do their own little research and find out, is it viable or not?
And that's a really good place to learn. Like, if you make mistakes there, it's not going to cost you your business or your marriage.
That's right. And then can you imagine if something did come up? That whole team has something that could potentially go ahead. So also looking at the moment and developing who can work with these teams if a team did come up with something that was potentially viable.
Wow, well, with you, they're in great hands, that's for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.